The topic which I wish to address today is copyright. In the old days, photocopying, Xeroxing, photocopying books, articles, things like that. Nowadays, downloading pirated software, songs, yeah, and so forth and so on. That's what I want to get to. But before we come to that, let me ask you whether you have any questions of a halachic nature that you wish to begin with.
Hi, Shalom, I do.
Okay.
Surprise.
Um,
Um, if um, if a woman is pregnant and she has what would be the difference in uh, kashrut with regards to maybe you already know I don't actually know how to form the question so clearly, but
are there
are there
any
leniency?
implications for kashrut for a woman who is pregnant? Um, uh, the answer is, if we're talking about the pregnancy before the labor begins, labor is a separate issue. So before labor begins, the woman who is pregnant has the halachic status of being sick. Of course, she can be perfectly healthy, but she still has the halachic status of being sick. The leniencies of sick people pertain to her because pregnant women typically have tiredness, this ache, that ache, this problem, that problem. They have the same feelings that sick people have, even though they're perfectly healthy. And therefore, the leniencies which pertain to sick people pertain to them. The biggest issue, and usually the only issue to arise, is the waiting time between meat and milk. As you know, there are many different minhagim, many different customs regarding the waiting time. Of course, anyone whose soul is touched by a sense of piety will wait 6 full hours between meat and milk. There are other practices out there which are fine. Some wait into the 6th hour, that is 5 hours plus a little bit more. Others wait 3 hours, others wait 1 hour. Well, that's for healthy people. A sick person, including a pregnant woman, even though she's probably entirely healthy, can reduce her waiting time to 1 hour, even though she normally waits longer. And if that is going to be burdensome, she can reduce the waiting time even more than that. But usually 1 hour will deal with the burden. Okay,
Thank you.
that's it.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions of a halachic nature before I begin?
I do have one, but I'll save it for the end in case I don't have to keep everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me get the stuff on the screen. Well, I'm really getting good at this. I'm good at the first try. We're talking now about what the poskim call ba'alut al chochma, ownership of intellectual property, ownership of property which has no physical existence to it. Before we begin looking at the sources, let me define for you what ownership means in halacha. Ownership in halacha is a bundle of rights. If I own something, I own my pencil, well, that means I have many rights regarding the pencil. I have the right to use it. I have the right to lend it out. I have the right to sell it. If it's broken, I have the right to destroy, to throw it in the rubbish. The list of rights is endless, and all those rights together, that's ownership. The bundle of rights is divisible. I can keep some of the rights for myself and give someone else some of the rights, and that's called lending something. If the person has the right to use it, but not the right to sell it, I retain the right to sell it. I give someone else the right to use it for a period of time. The bundle of rights is divisible. Sometimes the Torah prohibits hana'ah. Sometimes the Torah prohibits deriving any benefit from some chametz on Pesach. Not allowed to get any benefit, not allowed to sell it and benefit from the sale price. Chametz on Pesach, you're not allowed to mold it into the shape of a chair and lacquer it over and sit on it. You're getting some benefit from, you're not allowed to burn it and heat your house or cook your food with it. Any benefit from chametz or anything else that the Torah prohibits, hana'ah, prohibits getting any benefit from. Well, in concept, what is going on here is the Torah is stripping me of all my rights. The Torah has stripped me of ownership, saying, as far as chametz on Pesach is concerned, you have no rights. The Torah takes away your ownership. Okay, now we have an understanding of what ownership is, and of course, traditionally, ownership pertained to physical objects, real estate, things you could touch with your hands. Uh, the whole idea of ownership of ideas, ownership of music, a melody, ownership of things which are intangible is a modern idea. And not surprisingly, there are no sources in the Mishnah and Gemara dealing with this. Since the whole idea is a modern idea, we have to look at modern sources. I begin with the Piskei HaChoshen. This sefer is written by Rav Bloy. Rav Bloy was one of the leading Dayanim in the Eid HaCharedis in Yerushalayim, and universally revered for his expertise in the area of financial law, Dinei Mamonot. Let's see what he says about this issue. Im hishkia tircha be'esek, if someone invested effort in a business, umanot, or someone invested effort in artistry and artistic production, asur liyisrael acher lehasig gvulo be'esek zeh. No other Jew is allowed to infringe on his rights. No other Jew is allowed to compete with him. Now, the prohibition of hasagat gvul. What happened to my chat? Maybe I can get my chat back and type it correctly. I got it. Okay. Hasagat, gvul. There we got it on chat. Hasagat gvul is the prohibition of competition. Hasagat gvul means to illegally compete with someone. I'll give you the basic ideas. Someone invests effort in opening up a store to sell whatever the person is selling. Well, no one else is allowed to open up a store next door to that person because you're competing with the first store. If the second person who wants to open up the competing store is from the same town, not an outsider, and if the market can support two stores then it's okay. But if the market is only big enough to support one store, it is halachically prohibited to compete with the person who is already in business and already making a livelihood. Well, this pertains to anyone who has invested effort in building up a business. Nireh, and it seems, shekol hamtza'a o chidush ba'omanut b'melacha, any new idea that you have in business or in malacha, could go on patent. If you get a patent on a new product, yesh bo mishum hasagas gvul. Someone invents a new whatever it is and is selling it. Well, that person has invested effort in a business to sell this new product that he or she developed, and therefore the rules of competition apply. Makom makom, in any event, take a look in another section where he writes as follows: Kol mi sheyesh lo sefer zoche b'chol ma sheyachol lishtamesh bo. If you buy a sefer, you buy a book in the market, you have ownership of the book. It's yours. You have a huge bundle of rights. You can do whatever you want with the book. Well, I mean, if it's a Sefer Kodesh, you can't treat it disrespectfully, but anything which is halachically permitted, you are allowed to, you can sell it. You can do whatever you want with it. Ein shum isur l'hatik mimenu, and since you bought this book and it's yours and you own it, among your rights is the right to copy it. You can photocopy the book. It's your book. You own it. You have the right to photocopy it. Kishem shemutar lo lemochro, just like you'd be allowed to sell the book you bought. A book, you can sell it to someone else. It's your book. You can sell it. Laharviach bo, and you might even make profit if you sell the book. I indeed have occasionally sold books that I don't need anymore and have become rare, relatively rare books, and I'm able to sell them for slightly more than I bought for them. It's my book. I can make a profit selling it if I can find someone who wants to buy it. All this is true as long as I'm not competing with the original publisher who published the book. If I'm not competing with the publisher, then it's my book. I'm free to copy it. Now, think about it for a moment, and you'll understand that this means that if I'm copying it for my own private purposes, I'm not going to set up a business selling the photocopies. If I would sell the photocopies, I would be in competition with the original publisher, and that you're not allowed to do. But if I'm not setting up a business marketing the photocopies that I make, no problem at all. It's my book. I have rights to do with it what I want. I can photocopy it. And if I make photocopies, I can use those photocopies as I like. There's no business element here, and I'm not competing with the publisher. Legabe yechidim sheyesh lem eze sefer, and if a person happens to own some sefer, vadai de lo shayach din hasagas gvul. Of course, if you photocopy it, you are in no way competing with the publisher. You paid the publisher for the book you bought, and you want to make copies? Go ahead and do it. Lachein mutar lechol yachid la'atik sefer shenimtza biyado. Any sefer that you own, you are free to photocopy as you like. If you, it's your book, you have the right to copy it. You have the right to lend it out. The rights are divisible. You can lend the book to someone, but retain for yourself the right to copy it. You're welcome to borrow my book, but I don't allow you to copy it. Or I can give that right also to the person who borrowed it. Yes, you're free to borrow my book, and if you wish, copy it. I have the right to copy it. I can retain that right for myself, or I can give that right to the person who I lend the book to. יש איסור השגת גבול בהעתק תקליטים או קסטות שנעשה לשם מסחר. If you copy a book, music, back in those days it was music cassettes. If you copy music or books or software, now they have software, whatever you copy, as long as you're not engaging in commerce with the copies, you're not selling the copies, therefore you're not putting yourself in competition with the publisher, the original owner of the music, whatever it is. Fine, no problem at all. You're not guilty of competing because you're not engaged in any business, and it's your property. You have the right to copy it as you like. Makom, in any event, מותר ליחיד להשאילו להעתיק שלא לשם מסחר. Bottom line, you can copy it yourself, the music cassettes, you can copy the book yourself, and as long as you're not going into business selling the copies, you're fine. No problem at all. Now, this is a fairly lenient approach. And this fairly lenient approach reflects the thinking, the mainstream thinking of Rov Binyan and Rov Binyan of the great poskim. Let's take a look at what some of the other great poskim say on this issue. I make a mishpat written by one of the big dayan in Bnei Brak today. It's impossible to prohibit copying a book, often prati, which you do privately yourself. It's impossible. That civil law, secular law, is, although we normally say dina to malchusa dina, although we are normally obligated to conform with ordinary secular law in whatever country we live in, it's impossible to say that here in Eretz Israel, the secular law prohibits me from photocopying books that I bought. That is, the Israeli copyright law cannot block me from making copies. Zelo shayach be'Eretz Yisrael. In Eretz Yisrael, it simply doesn't. It cannot be. Why? Harei b'shnat tafshin nun vav. Back when they made the copyright laws, when the Knesset in Israel made the copyright laws, Tukan, they legislated chok zchuyot yotzrim. They created this new law that the creator of the music, the author of the book, has certain zchuyot, rights. Bo ne'amar, and it says in the law passed by the Knesset, b'zeh lashon. Tosefet Shniya, Ksiv Gimel, gives you the paragraph number where the law says as follows: the Israeli law, as legislated by the Knesset, says, Lo tihiyeh zo hafara shel zchuyot yotzrim, it will not be considered a violation of the rights of the copyright holder, mivatzim litboa or l'sha'atek yitzira, if one chooses l'sha'atek, that's the fancy way of saying laha'atek. You know Hebrew grammar. Everyone should know Hebrew grammar. It's terribly important. Hebrew verbs have binyanim, different prefixes, different vowel patterns, and the prefixes and the vowel patterns in the verbs teach you a lot. For example, hu lamad means he studied. Hu limed different binyan, different vowel pattern. The vowel pattern of P-L-E-A, li-med, means he made the idea of the verb happen. Hu lamad, he learned. Hu limed, he made someone learn. That is, he taught that person. Well, the hey prefix of hif'il is causative, and right, hu katav, he wrote. Hu hichtiv, he caused someone to write. That means he dictated to someone. He spoke and someone else wrote down what he was writing. He dictated to someone to write. Now, why is all this important? Because in Akkadian, one of the important languages in the ancient Near East, Semitic language, the verb structures, binyanim, very similar to Hebrew. Instead of the hey prefix, where Hebrew has a hey prefix, Akkadian has a shin prefix. So instead of lahatik, in Akkadian, it's lishatik. Yeah, okay. Now Hebrew uses some of these Akkadian words. For example, herut means freedom. The root is hey, resh, resh. Herut, freedom. Lishahrer in Hebrew is using the Akkadian prefix shin to cause someone to be free. Herut is freedom. Lishahrer is to cause someone to be free. That is to free a slave or release someone from the hospital in modern Hebrew. The modern Hebrew has taken that shin prefix and started to use it wherever in English we would have an RE prefix. In English, the RE prefix means to do something again, to repeat, to rebuild, to rewrite, to reconstruct. Means the re prefix in English means do it again, right? And modern Hebrew has started to use the shin prefix of Akkadian to represent the RE prefix as we have it in English. For example, lishachtev, to rewrite. Lishavnot, to rebuild. Got the idea?
Does Vishinantem fit in that?
No, because they're the root of shin. They're the shin is part of the root. It's not a prefix. Although it would be a very, very good linguistic project to take a Hebrew dictionary and go through all the shins in the Hebrew dictionary, pluck out all the verbs in Hebrew which begin with a shin, and you'll notice that many of them are really a shin prefix with a two-letter root. Hebrew roots are usually 3 letters, but some Hebrew roots are 2 letters. And if you go through the shins in a dictionary, pluck out the verbs, you'll see many of the verbs are shin plus a 2-letter root. For example, kum means to arise, to stand. Lishakem means to make someone stand up again, that is to rehabilitate. Lishakem, the ordinary Hebrew word to rehabilitate, is lishakem, to cause someone to stand up again. That's what that's the idea behind rehabilitating someone. So in any event, when the Knesset says l'shatek, that means to copy again. The printer copied it once when he printed the book. You can copy it again at home. And according to the copyright law, that's not a violation of copyright. Al gabe galetet l'shem prati beiti as long as you're making the copy of the music, whatever it is, for private use, for household use, shelo lematarot mischariyot, as long as you're not marketing your copies, there's no commercial purpose in making the copies, so you're not in competition with the owner of the copyright, no objection at all. According to the law, there's no objection. And therefore, Dina de Malchus, Dina, the law of the land, is no reason to be strict on this matter. And even if the law would be strict, we would, of course, ignore it because we don't like anything those Zionists do. Let's go one step further. Rav Alevi, one of the leading Sephardic poskim in Eretz Yisrael, writes as follows: "Tachanot machshev, regarding computer programs, software, שההוצאה שם בדרך כלל הוצאה גדולה מאוד. A lot of money went into producing the computer program, Microsoft Word or whatever it is. Well, I don't like Microsoft. Why? I don't know why anyone would want to use Microsoft programs when בחינם אין כסף, where for free you can download Libra, what they used to call Open Office, and now they call Libra. You can download them for free and you do exactly the same things that Microsoft Word can do, and it's all for free, open source software. If you're using professional typesetting programs, so the free stuff might not be good enough for you, but for any household use, it's surely good enough. In any event, a lot of money. Microsoft invested a lot of money in their Office suite, Word and spreadsheet and database and so on and so on. Kama me'ot shekalim. They invested a few hundred shekels. Well, hundreds of thousands of shekels they invested in producing these programs. Yesh shavim kama alfei dolarim. To buy some of these programs, the program costs, the software costs a few $1,000s to buy. Im yavo kol echad la'atik hatochna letzorchei prati. If everyone will start copying, downloading for a pirated version, if everyone will start pirating and making personal copies of that software, imkain, ein ledavar sof, there's no limit to that, and then no one will buy, well, one person will buy a legitimate copy for a few $1,000s, and everyone else can just copy his. Well, we don't want that, do we? Rav Alevi says, and therefore, the individual person who is copying, although that person is not engaged in commercial activity, although he's not marketing the copy, he is harming the financial interests of Microsoft, and therefore should be prohibited. היסוד הוא אחד, דהיכא שיש הפסד שווה למוציא לאור, the publisher, or לחברת הפקה, if there's going to be some financial loss to the original owner of the copyright, היינו שאין נפקא מינה, אם עתיקה לשימוש עצמי או לשם מסחר. It doesn't matter whether you're copying for private use or for commercial use. All is prohibited. So here we see a big machloket. Most of the poskim are like the earlier examples that we saw, lenient, as long as there's no commercial interest in what you're doing. The minority view, Rav Halevi, he's not the only one. The others on the minority side hold that any action that you take that adversely affects the financial interests of the owner of the copyright, that's called mischar, that's called a commercial interest, and therefore prohibited. Now, on the conceptual level, if you think about it for a moment, you'll understand right away why the minority opinion is just that, the minority opinion. After all, the claim that a non-commercial activity has the status of a commercial activity is, on the face of it, a little strange. You understand right away why the minority opinion is the minority opinion, but that opinion exists. Therefore, anyone who wishes to be machmir, anyone who wishes to be strict and refrain from copying, photocopying, or downloading pirated software, whatever it is, that is an opinion, a minority view, that is an opinion, and therefore we will not mock, at least I will not mock, and I will not laugh at someone who is strict on this issue. I will say, Ashrei lo, Ashrei la, very, very nice if you wish to be mahmir. On the other hand, anyone who asks for advice, anyone who asks whether it's permissible to do the copying, the answer should be in accord with the mainstream majority view of the poskim, permissible. If you wish to be machmir, well, it's okay. It's praiseworthy. It's a good idea to be machmir in this issue, but that's not exactly the same as saying you're obligated to. Okay, at this point, I want to turn to the opinion of Rav Dov Lior. He was, for many years, the Rav of Rav Hebron. He's retired now, but he remains active, and he was one of the, still is, one of the leading Rabbanim in Eretz Israel. Let's see what he has to say. Regarding copying of computer programs, disks, regarding copying of disks, kalatot, if you're not going to engage in any commercial activity, if you're not going to sell the copies, mutar, all is well. Well, he falls right in line with the majority of poskim. That's not surprising. Ulam, b'mikra shabalim makpidim al kach. But if the owner of the copyright is makpid and says flat out, I don't want anyone to copy my material, even for private use, then it would be an act of piety, chasidus, to refrain from copying. Well, as far as the bottom line halacha is concerned, he agrees with the mainstream. It is permitted to make copies for personal use. But since the strict opinion exists, and some great rabbis were on the strict side, it would be an act of chasidus, piety, above and beyond what halacha requires, to be strict and refrain from the copying. Now he begins with his big ideas. Up until this point, he's just rehashed what we already know. But in Bet, he has some new ideas. Horadat Hamorim Internet, downloading material from the internet. We should go at a tochnot, a diskim, a pirate who steals the software, the music, the book, whatever it is, Someone has stolen, a pirate has stolen the stuff. Umefitzato rabim, the internet, and has uploaded the stolen version to the internet. Someone has illegally uploaded Microsoft Office Suite. Someone has illegally uploaded some popular music onto the internet, and now it's available for whoever wants to download it. Oh, there, the person who stole the music, the computer program, whatever it is, and uploaded it to the internet is guilty of a crime, a severe crime. He stole what you stole. Not only did you steal, but you then put it into the public domain. That's a serious crime. All the more so if you're going to make a profit. But even if without a profit, it's prohibited. But if you make a profit, all the more so it's prohibited because that's another violation. Not only stealing, but hasagas gavul, competition. That's the pirate who stole the stuff and uploaded it. The pirate who cracked the security on the program and uploaded it. That pirate is guilty. But this has nothing to do with the people who download from the internet. The people who download from the internet are in the clear. They are guilty of nothing. Why? Because the facts are, the facts are that once something has been uploaded and is available to the worldwide public for downloading, there's no longer any control about who is going to download it. There's no way to control what's going to happen with that music, that software. Now it's available to everyone in the world who has a computer, who has an internet connection. V'chein, ein efsharut ma'asit la'kov bereshet hukim shel zchuyot yotzrim. Not only is it now impossible to control who is going to download the music or whatever it is, further, it's impossible to keep track of who does download it. All of this is simply impossible. You cannot control the downloading. You cannot supervise the downloading. It's going to happen. Those are simple facts. Anyone with an internet connection will be able to download the stuff. Therefore, and here comes his big idea. Therefore, this is the same as Aveda Sheshatfanar, the same as having lost your property in a tsunami. The Gemara talks about the river which flooded and swept away your garden furniture, swept away your property. Well, if the tsunami sweeps away your property, who knows where it got to? Yeah, you go search for it. You might or might not ever find it. It's, for all practical purposes, lost. You have no reasonable hope of ever getting it back. Once the tsunami has washed has taken your property and washed it out into the ocean, you have no reasonable expectation of ever recovering your property. And therefore, since you have no reasonable expectation of ever recovering your lost property, the lost property becomes hefker, ownerless, and whoever does find it can pick it up, and it belongs to the finders keepers, belongs to whoever finds it. If your property got washed out into the ocean and some deep sea diver finds it, it belongs to the salvage person. If your property gets washed down river in a flood and ends up in your garden furniture ends up in someone else's front lawn, it belongs to that person. Where there is no reasonable hope of recovering lost property, the rule is hefker, finders keepers. If the owner, if the person who lost the property doesn't want anyone else to use it, it would be an act of piety to refrain. It would be an act of piety for the finder to refrain from using it. But as far as halacha is concerned, finders keepers. And that is exactly what happens on the internet. Someone hacks a piece of Microsoft software, uploads it onto the internet. Who knows how many hundreds, thousands, millions of people download it? There's no way. It's simply, the facts are, it is impossible to find all of those copies wherever they might be in the world. The original owner, Microsoft, has no reasonable expectation of ever collecting together again all of the downloaded copies. It's simply unimaginable that Microsoft would be able to do that. And therefore, all of those downloaded copies are no different than the property which was washed away in the tsunami. It's hefker, finders keepers, and Alpidin, there's no objection to the downloader using the cracked program in the ordinary way. If the original owner is makpid, and every case is different, I suppose, whether they are or not, then it would be an act of piety to refrain from using that. Haklatot shirim radio. Oh, you don't know about this. When I grew up, there was this thing called a radio. It was like a little box that we had in the house. You could turn some dials and music would come out of it. It was very common when I was growing up. So if music is coming out of this box, the New York Philharmonic Orchestra is performing Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, and I hold my tape recorder. That was a recording device, sort of like a smartphone that records. And I would hold it in front of the radio. Now I have my own copy of the New York Philharmonic performing the Beethoven. Ein isur hatik shirim radio. No prohibition to do that. Once the music is distributed over the radio waves out into the public, there's no way to limit, there's no way to control copies which are being made, and there's no way to find copies. There's no way that the original owner, the New York Philharmonic in this case, no way they could find all the copies that were made and collect them together again. They're lost, and therefore no objection to copying it. That's okay. Tochnot machshev she'en lehasigam bechaluyot. What about the software which is no longer for sale? The previous edition, the previous Gersa, the previous version of some spreadsheet, the previous version of some word processor is no longer for sale. They want to make money selling newer versions. לעתים יצרני תוכניות מפתחים תוכנות מחשב משודרגת. Occasionally, the creator of the software makes a better version, version 2.0, כדי להכריח את הצרכנים לקנות את התוכנה החדשה. The reason they make better versions is to sell them. They want to push the customers who already spent a lot of money on version 1.0. They want to convince the customers to ditch that and spend even more money on version 2.0. Hem misavim limkor, no longer sell the original Girsa, the original version of the software. But Makrim Kaela, in cases like this, mutar lechatchila la'atik shelo l'matara mischari. Of course, it's permissible to copy the earlier versions. You are in no sense in competition with the original producer, because the original producer is not selling them at all anymore. No problem at all. This is the approach of Rav Lior. Now he returns to his ideas in another internet site where he says, "Ein shlita al ma shenimtza b'internet." There's no way to control people downloading from the internet. Kamo she'ein shlita al ma shemeshudar b'radio. Just like there's no way to control who copies things which are broadcast over the radio. Therefore, everyone is allowed to copy material which is broadcast over radio waves, just like you're allowed to copy anything which is available on the internet. Anything which is released into the public in a way that the owner cannot control who grabs it is no different than property which has been washed away by a tsunami. That property becomes ownerless, and whoever picks it up owns it. Baror. It's perfectly clear that where there is no reasonable possibility to reclaim your property, you have yeush, you despair, you give up hope of getting it back, and therefore you lose ownership. Anyone is allowed to grab it. Any song, any YouTube, any song which is available for download on the internet is mufka, ownerless, and anyone is allowed to copy it. Now, these ideas are clearly rooted in the mainstream opinion, which is lenient, and not surprisingly, many other poskim say very similar things. I began making a list, but I gave up. I just, Tzitz Eliezer, you'll find many other poskim say basically the same thing. Let's now take a look at the Shevet HaLevi. Shevet HaLevi was written by Rav Vosner. He was one of the great, probably the greatest of the Hasidic poskim in Bnei Brak. He wrote, in Eno Matpis, this was before the word litzalem became common. He means photocopy. If you photocopy, you photocopy something to distribute to the public. Ben Talmidei Beit HaSefer, kasher lehem liknot kama sfarim shebekol sefer lo nitzruchu ela ledvarim achadim. It's expensive to buy a whole sefer. The students, the Talmidim, are only going to need certain passages from the sefer. You want to give a shiur, you want to teach a class on Rambam, and you want the students to have certain passages of the Rambam that they can study for the class. It's expensive to buy a whole set of Rambam when all you need is a few lines here and there. Therefore, in a situation like this, Adrabah, mitzvah yesh b'davar. It's a mitzvah, lahakel al limud. It's a mitzvah to make life easier for the Talmidim, Lifnei Zera Kodesh, the holy Talmidim, make life easier for them. There's no reason why the students should have to pay for a whole sefer when all they need is certain passages from it. Of course, it's a mitzvah to photocopy those passages and distribute them to the Talmidim or Talmidot. Even though the publisher is going to lose some income because the publisher will sell fewer copies, and call Talmid Kones Svarim. Well, not all the Talmidim would be willing to buy the book. Well, you're not actually competing with the publisher. At worst, you are just reducing the profits of the publisher. And the prohibition of Hasagat Gvul, the prohibition of competition, is just that, competing with the other merchants. Here, if you photocopy parts of the book and distribute them to the Talmidim, you're not competing with the publisher. At worst, you're just reducing some of the publisher's profits. And that is not prohibited. Furthermore, Ruika, and this is the main point, Ein isur ela shemadpis etzem sefer kulo kemo rishon, rak mosif v'goreya k'tzat. No prohibition can apply unless the copy is exactly like the original. If the copy is in some way different from the original, that eliminates the problem of competition. And if you're only copying part of the sefer, that's different than the whole sefer, and no problem at all. No reason to prohibit copying part of the sefer and distributing the copies to the students. Kamuvan, ein lafitz kutrasim rapim misgaret panim beit sefer. Of course, you should only do this in the school and not on the public streets. I don't know why he says that, but he says. You find the same ideas repeated in many other poskim. I've been making a list. The list can be made much longer. Bottom line, these poskim, following the mainstream approach, hold that it's permissible to copy something that you would not buy, permissible to copy something which you have bought, if you wish, as long as the copy is for non-commercial use. Therefore, if you've bought a used copy of a book, well, maybe you didn't buy a used copy of it. The fact that used copies exist in the market, if used copies of the book exist in the market, they're cheaper than the original. You could have bought one of those. You can surely buy a used copy and copy that. But even if you don't buy the used copy, you just download it from the internet, this also should be equally permitted. Bottom line, we've seen over and over again, the mainstream poskim are very lenient on this issue. The one big name on the strict side is Rav Moshe Feinstein in the Igus Moshe. He wrote like this: B'dvar echad she'asa tape b'divrei Torah, someone made a tape recording of shiurim, kotev she'oseh la'asot tape zeh shelo od tapes. He wrote on the tape, on the cassette, it's prohibited to make copies of this tape. You cannot make more tapes from this tape. the cassette cannot be recorded. That's what the original person wrote on the cassette. Of course, it's prohibited then. He made the tape. She made the tape to profit, and therefore, anyone who wants to benefit from it has to pay. Since the tape belongs to the original person who says you're not allowed to copy it, then you're not allowed to copy it. Let me explain the underlying concept of the Igros Moshe. The technical term for this is shiur. They have it typed on chat, shiur. The word shiur means to leave a little bit aside, l'shayer, to leave a little bit aside. If I own property, for example, this cassette, which has a shiur recorded on it, if I own it, if it's mine, I can do with it what I like. I have a whole bundle of rights regarding it, and that bundle of rights is divisible. Therefore, Reb Moshe says, I can sell you a copy of my book. I can sell you a cassette. I can sell you a disc. I can sell you software to be downloaded from the internet. I can sell it to you, thereby giving you the right to use it, but I do not give you all the rights regarding this sefer, regarding this software, regarding this song. One right I retain for myself. I do not sell you the right to copy it. Since ownership is a bundle of rights, and those rights can be divided, I can keep some for myself and give some to someone else. You can sell your property, transferring as many of your rights as you wish and retaining whatever rights you wish. And if you retain the right to copy it, then that right is not transferred to the purchaser. That's what Reb Moshe Feinstein held. Let's go one step further. No, that's it. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Makom, Baal Divrei Torah, whoever recorded the shiur, the rabbi who made the tape, if he allows people to copy the tape, then he has transferred that right to others, and all is well. According to Igros Moshe, if in the front of the sefer it says asur l'ha'atik, it is prohibited to make any copy whatsoever of this book, if in the contract agreement, in downloading the software, it says you have every right to use this in any way you wish, but you do not have the right to copy it, then according to Igros Moshe, the right to copy is retained by the original owner, and you have a prohibition to copy any of that. So this is the biggest name on the strict side of the issue. With this, I'm going to pause and ask you if you have any questions you want to ask.
So, go ahead, Neva.
So if the person that wrote the book is no longer alive, and can you copy?
Ownership of property does not expire when you die. Ownership of property does not expire when you die. Ownership of property goes to your inheritors. If someone who dies intestate, someone who dies without a will, without having said who you want the property, because your property, you can give it to whoever you want when you die. But someone who has not done that, the Torah has very specific rules of inheritance for people who die intestate, for people who die without any will. So either the will be followed or the rules for intestate inheritance will be followed, and the ownership goes to the inheritors. Okay, next.
I wanted to ask, I noticed some very harsh tochacha, if I could say that, in the front of certain Sifrei Torah. Is that because they're worried about the lowering of their revacha?
Yeah.
Revach, I mean.
Well, of course, this began in the 16th century when printing became very common. When printing started in the 16th century, people invested a lot of money in printing a Gemara, a Rambam, or a Shulchan Aruch, whatever it is, and therefore many Rabbanim wanted to protect the rights of that person, and until they sold all of their copies, they said no one else should compete with them. But that's again a commercial prohibition. If anyone else starts printing and marketing the same sefer, you're putting yourself in competition with that person, and that you're not allowed to do. Back in those days, there was no way. Well, you could copy by hand. You could make a copy by hand. As long as there's no commercial interest in the copy, that's okay, even in the old days.
And distributing it to a friend. So let's say you take a picture or you keep a copy. You take a picture of someone else's sefer, like a few pages, or you take a picture of your sefer and then you distribute it to a friend. These are not commercial actions, you're saying.
Correct.
Okay.
Where's the money? There's no commercial interest there. Okay.
And if the
Jordan.
book is no
No.
longer sefer is no longer in print, and you want to copy it for your own purpose, like let's say it appears on the internet but not in book form, and you want to look at it on Shabbat. So so
you can download it and print it out.
Right.
No problem. No problem.
What would you say to the pushback? My guess, the biggest pushback to, let's say, taking a picture and distributing it either from a friend or taking it from your own would be that is a commercial action because it's lowering someone's profits.
That's what Ahmad Levi made that argument, and that is a minority view. According to the majority view, the prohibition of competition is going into business in competition with the other people. He says,
Got it.
even though you're not going into business, you are lowering the profits. That's the minority view. And it would be an act of hasidus, piety, above and beyond the requirements of halacha to refrain from that.
I hear that. And then on the other hand, it's distributing Torah. So it's a very interesting.
So okay.
So there's a website called Spotify that music, podcasts, whatever. So if I see a song that I like, I don't record it. I go to Amazon and I buy that piece. You can buy the piece of music, and thereby benefit the person who wrote the song.
Good. That's good. That's highly commendable. Okay. Joe, do you have a question?
Do they not get anything from Spotify?
I'm sorry?
They do. They do.
You probably, if you have a membership, perhaps you can download. I don't. Maybe I don't.
Every play benefits the artist. I think probably buying it gives more, but every play benefits them. I think even from non-membership accounts. I think that's the deal they do. But yeah,
that's true. That every view or whatever, that is true. But downloading it, I think you have to be either a member. Something to that effect.
Okay.
Yeah, I just mean from the point of view of the artist.
Because you can listen to it at any time. You don't need to you don't even need to download it. You can listen to it even if you're a non-member. You can listen to it as many times as you like.
Well, okay. Is that it for today?
Okay, so can I ask you my
Sure.
So the situation is this personal situation. My daughter is Bezrat Hashem due to give birth.
B'sha'ah tova.
Amen. Thank you. And over Shabbos, we cannot stay in the same place. We're in next door suburbs. And she would like me to be there if she has to go into the hospital.
Mhm.
And we are not sure if I am not with her, if I can go, if they can get a message to me and if I can go in to the hospital if it's
Yeah.
on Shabbat.
Yeah. How would you get to the hospital? You would walk there, you would drive there, someone would drive you?
I'd have to get an Uber or a taxi or something.
Very good. Very good. You should set up some messaging system. For example, if she rings your number, then you know that you should go to the hospital. Set up some messaging system, and it would be preferable to have a non-Jewish driver who you make arrangements before Shabbat with a non-Jewish driver that if I call you up, uh, come and pick me up and I'll pay you after Shabbat.
Right. So, because my son-in-law
You can
thought,
call up. Then you can call up that driver then.
okay, so I don't have to be with her in order to be able to go and meet her at the hospital.
Correct. You can go from your home and meet her at the hospital.
And I can make a call to the taxi driver.
You can make a call to the non-Jewish driver to pick you up. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, b'sha'ah tova.
Amen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Tonight is Tu B'Shvat. I wish you a happy Tu B'Shvat and a good week. Shabbat Shalom. Look forward to seeing you all again next week. Until then, Shalom, Shalom.
Shalom, shalom. Tu b'shvat sameach. Shabbat shalom.
Amen. Toda rabba.
May I ask what you like to do for Tu b'shvat? If you're still here.
What I like to do, my favorite Shabbat, Gilyon Shabbat, which comes out every week, is Shmaita Amikne, which generally has very deep and profound thoughts about what the poskim have to say on various issues. And before every event on the Jewish calendar, they put out a special edition for that. So a special edition for Tu B'Shvat. Chock full of 2 pages of analysis of opinions of the poskim, beginning to end. Beginning to end, dealing exclusively with tolaim, insect infestation.
Wow.
Now, I find this fascinating because according to the Mishnah, the Gemara, the Rambam, the Shulchan Aruch, all the great poskim that I know of, what Tu B'Shvat is all about is it's Rosh Hashanah, Perot Ilan, and you cannot take Trumot and Maserot from one year on the fruits of the next year. And I hoped to find a discussion of exactly how to define fruits of one year and fruits of another year. After all, it's a machlokas rishonim, whether it depends upon whether the fruits were ripe on Rosh Hashanah, or were they 1/3 ripe on Rosh Hashanah.
Right.
And I was hoping to find some wisdom on this, but it's all about tolaim.
Each year they do the same thing about Tolaim, or this year it's about Tolaim?
I don't know what was in previous years. Oh,
Yeah.
have a good week.
Maybe ask the farmers.
בהצלחה.
Amen. Gam lecha. Kol tov.
שלום.
Amen.